Hi everyone, it's me, Spring, the fiber enthusiast, and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to go over a little bit of a tatting topic. So this is needle tatting, and I was recently asked about how to gauge how much tail you need for a project, or how much thread overall you need for a project, or what if I run out? Can I add more? Absolutely, you can add as you go. In one of my beginning tatting tutorials or beginning tatting topics, I was working on showing you the different ways to do things, and I happened to run out of thread while working on that project with you. And I took that opportunity to show how to add more. However, it's always a little difficult to always find stuff like that. So I wanted to do a separate video that was geared toward directly either adding more to, or how do I gauge type situation. So to be honest, it's easier just to add more than to try to calculate and figure out. Once you have been doing needle tatting for a while, you kind of get a feel for how much you need for certain size projects. So it's a little easier to just add more than it is to try to figure out how much you're going to need. If I'm working on a project and I intentionally cut this thread, because I would have had enough to make it around, but I intentionally cut it to show you this. But if I'm working around this project here, and I'm just doing these arches here around the outside, basically I'm looking at it and I go, okay, so I'm probably going to need enough to go around my project twice, because all I'm doing is making these arches. Now, if I was going to be doing much more than that, it would be a little bit more complicated to try to figure out how to add to it, or, you know, how to calculate that excess that you're going to need, or extra that you're going to need. So we're going to just go over, how do we add more? If I run out, can I add more? Absolutely. How do I do it? Let's get into it. All right. So I have cut this so that way it was short enough for me to say, I ran out and I need a little bit more to finish these last few arches here. What do I do? Okay, well, the first thing you're going to want to do is go ahead and tie a knot where your project is ending here, where we're going to end it. You want to tie a knot and secure that good and taut. So I already had one. I'm just now went ahead and did the second one. Then you're going to want to weave in these ends. Now, generally speaking, I would go a different direction with each end. I would go this way with this one because it tends to lean that way. And this one I would go the other way. But because I'm attached to a picot right here, and this is a different color, both of my ends are going to get wove into the same piece. Just so you know, as you're looking, you can see that I'm going into these stitches here. So I'm just going up under the stitches, kind of squeezing those stitches between my fingers just a little bit to hold them steady, and sliding the needle and tail thread through those stitches. And if you are tight with the thread on your needle, these stitches will be a little bit hard to get into, and you may have to work your needle back and forth a little bit trying to get them in. But the main thing is even though you tied a knot, if you was to run this through the wash, you do not want it coming out or, coming untied. So the best thing to do would be to go ahead and just slip that tail through some stitches. Kind of anchor it down in there. Then you're going to cut it away as close to your tatted work as possible without cutting your work. And then adjust those stitches over the top of that tail. All right, now I'm going to do the other side. Now, when I do the thread that's coming from my working ball of yarn, I kind of do it a little bit different than most would. And I do this to salvage and not have as much waste thread. So I'm going to turn my work over and I'm going to go into the other side here, the other side of that arch. I'm going to try to go in as close to the bottom as possible here. I really want more than that. Try to pick up as many stitches on this needle as possible. There we go. Now I got a good batch of them. So what I do is I get the eye as close to my work as possible without creating too much issue. And then what I do is cut just a small, let me see if I can get in the frame here. Then I just cut a small piece, leaving just a small little tail here. Using my needle threader, I will thread that in. For the needle. Pull it back so that way it's just a little bit there. Grab hold of my work and pull that through. Just like that. Now I just have this little tiny piece to cut away from my work. And that's all of the waste that I have from my ball of yarn. Very, very minute amount of waste by doing it that way. So that's just my little trick there. All right, so we're going to add more. And go ahead and lace your needle back up. And I'm just going to guesstimate on how much more I need. And now we're going to pick up our work. And I'm going to turn it over so that way the wrong side is facing me. Okay, so here is where I left off. Get in frame. So here is where I left off, right here. So what I want to do is I want to go into that last stitch. I really, really, really want to go into that stitch. Really, really good. Just like that. Now, generally, if we were working and you wanted to add at this point, you could just pick up at a picot at, right where you're at. But this is a good solid add. So we're going to go right through the work. Like such. You're going to place a knot. Now you're going to go into that picot or into the stitch where you're going to be working. So if it was a join between a ring and a arch, you would go right into the base of that ring where the arch and the ring come together. That's where you would go in. But because I'm working off of a picot, I'm going to go into that picot, turn my work over so that way the right side is facing me, and place one more knot. All right, so now I'm connected. I'm secure, I'm connected to where we left off. I'm also connected to that picot and prepared for my next adventure on my next arch. So then you would just continue working. In my case, I'm doing 5 picot, just as a sample. This was a little sample I had in the bin, and I pulled it out just for this. One more. And then I'm going to pull through, pick up my next picot, and finish this off with a knot and one more arch. So that is how you add as you go for your needle tatting if you're running out of thread. Give you a basic idea as to how I kind of gauge when I'm working on a pair of earrings. I know it's usually, if it's just a small, nothing major, it's going to be roughly 10 to 12 inches, and that is really exaggerated sometimes, just depends. And sometimes it's not enough because you're doing a lot of connecting and big loops and stuff. So being able to gauge how much you need is all in practice, all in working over multiple projects and kind of get a feel for how you do your needle tatting, how they work up. As far as adding, you can add at just about any given point. So wherever your joins are. And yeah, well, I hope that you have enjoyed this tutorial. Any other questions on needle tatting, feel free to ask down in the comments section, and I will be happy to address those in a video or in reply.